Inviting me here tonight, and as she said, I'm Denise Hubbard, and I'm the Callaway County Clerk, and this is my first term, so this is my 4th year of being there. I owe a big thanks for that to my husband, Mitch Hubbard, who is very supportive. For those of you who don't know much about me, I'm also, as well as being a wife, I'm a mother. We have 9 children.
And she's running again, and you can more than you. She can set campaign down for this.
She can know where those 9 kids.
She can win just by having her kids vote.
Well, only 2 will be old enough to vote. So the oldest is 19, the youngest is 2. So we have 5 boys and 4 girls, and we also homeschool. So lots of prayer and a good husband. That's the only way to do it. We have great kids, and they get involved in the campaigns. I think it's important for kids to get started soon. I'm glad to see some of you guys here and hear that you're involved in, is it Teen Eagles? That's great. Our kids, they've been out campaigning with us since, well, Mitch ran for Secretary of State in 2008, and they went around the state with him, helping him campaign. And sometimes from one to the other, long days campaigning. So it's good for them to get involved because of our involvement, because of our passion for making our government and making sure that things are better for our kids' future. They see these things, and it comes across. You can see it in our older children now. They're very conservative. This is kind of off topic, but an example, our 2nd oldest works at Walmart part-time, and they recently got the raise for the minimum wage. And you guys might have different opinions about it, I don't know. And the lady had been back in the back, and she was bringing each of the employees back and telling them, guess what, you got a raise, you got 15 cents more. And she asked him, aren't you excited about that? He said, no. He said, I'd rather earn that raise, because what's going to happen is the cost is going to come back. It's going to come back to all of us. So I know that our homeschooling and our conservative values are coming across to them. And some days you wonder, why am I homeschooling? Why are we doing this? It's not the easy way to do things. But it's important. Anything that they might lose, they're gaining so much more. They do get, education, and they get interaction with other teams. And you guys aren't, held in a cage and, forced to sit there and learn. You get out and you're involved. So, okay, back to the topic. But I just wanted to let you know, that it's more than, you have to get involved on the local level, on the state level, on any level you can. We have to step out of our comfort zones. I had never, ever planned on running for an elected position. My husband, Mitch, is very passionate and has been, and I supported him when he ran. And when it came time for someone to run for county clerk, our county clerk was retiring, and we needed somebody to run. And I kept looking around, we kept looking, who's going to run? We need a conservative to run for that office. Elections are important. There's so many things that we do that are important. But there was no one, and then, you realize, okay, maybe I'm the one being called to do this. So I ran, and I've learned a lot in the last 4 years, and I've seen a lot. There's so many things that go on that you don't realize. The elections are more than just going and voting on election day. There's the programming of the machines, there's the getting the ballots ready, and it's important to have somebody in there that's going to have your interest at heart. They care, and they want to make a difference. And sometimes you may not think it's you that should be running for school board or these other positions, but we've got to get involved. We've got to step out of our comfort zones. I don't like public speaking. But I've grown more comfortable with it. I don't dislike it as much as I used to. I don't need it anymore. And I'm challenging myself to step out of my comfort zone and speak more often. And it's getting easier. So, back to the topic of voter rolls. Every 2 years, the counties are supposed to do a canvassing. They go through and they send out mailings to all of the registered voters in their area, and some of those come back, and then we have to send out another one. There's only certain ways you can remove voters from the voter rolls. And it's for our protection, you know, as a voter. You don't want to lose your right to vote just because, you know, you haven't been in a while. You want to be able to vote once you've registered. You don't want somebody just removing your name because somebody calls and say you moved. So there's only certain ways of doing it. We get frustrated people calling sometimes because, you know, they got a card for their son and he's moved to Wisconsin. I can't remove them because someone calls and tells me their son moved. There's only two ways. Either the son has to send me something and sign it. We have to have a signature. So get your sons and your friends, if they move, to change their voter registration. The other way is through the canvassing process, where we send them mail and it comes back, and then we send another piece and it comes back. They're put on a NVRA list, which means that if they don't vote in the next 2 general elections, then we can remove them. But we still have to wait. We still have to send them another piece the next year. It starts a timestamp. Yes.
My son moved from St. Charles County to St. Louis County.
Okay.
Can I get his name taken off? Or does he have to
He
do it
has
even
to-
for that short
He has to do that.
move? Okay.
One of the good things in Missouri now is within the state, if he's in St. Charles and he moves to St. Louis and he registers, the state system flags that and it notifies them when they register him in St. Charles that, hey, he was already registered here and you can claim that voter. The problem we have is you can sign up as, your name might be Robert, you might sign up as Robert here, and then you move to another county and you're not Robert, you might go by your middle name, which is James. And it might flag them that they have similar, like there's a percentage that it gives us when it pulls somebody up that might be a possible match. And if it's not close to 100%, you really hesitate about removing them because they may not be the same person. You look at the birth date, the last 4 social security numbers, and look at their signatures, you know, different things. So that's one of the few problems. There has been legislation talking about making it where you have to use your, what would be the proper term? Your name, your legal name to register to vote. I think this would help. You'd have to find a way of enacting it, but then you wouldn't have James and Jim. It would be the same every time they register to vote. So, but that hasn't gone anywhere that I know of. So, as far as moving from state to state, that one's a little harder because our systems are different, and we have to rely on their Secretary of State to send it to our Secretary of State, who then sends it out to us. We received last year and the year before, we received those lists from other states from our Secretary of State's office. Some of those were outdated. They had moved out 8 years ago.
Wow.
And so at this point, we're like, well, where should they be registered? Did they move back to Missouri? So we have to contact those states to say, when did they register? When's the last time they voted? Are they active? And then we look at when the last time is they registered here. And whichever is the most current, we have to go by. So there's a lot of things in cleaning up the voter rolls, you know, that we can help, you guys can help with by encouraging people when they do move, or when you move, notifying your election authorities. Yes.
Marriages, especially with the women, except some cases, change their name.
Right.
Some don't.
Right.
How do you handle that?
We require them to fill out a new voter registration. You can vote one time with your previous, once you've married, you can vote one time, and then you have to change your voter registration, because some people don't realize they have to do that. So that's how we do it, and we try to catch those when people do vote. You know, that you've got to do it. The same way with moving and changing your address. You can still vote as long as you're within the same county. The thing that a lot of people don't understand is just because you're registered in Cole County doesn't mean you can move and vote in Callaway County. It's not a statewide registration, you're registering within that county. And people will get upset sometimes because they want to vote, and they moved to Audrain, but they lived in Callaway, for example. You can't vote in Audrain because you didn't vote in time, but you can't vote in Callaway County because you don't live there anymore.
That's right.
And you have to vote where you live. So, and just changing it on your driver's license doesn't necessarily change your voter registration. Only if you fill out a card when you go get your voter registration, or when you get your driver's license for a new registration, does it count. But it doesn't carry across the state from county to county. So, and, you know, we've really noticed this when we have presidential years. That's when we get more people, that's when we find out people moved and they didn't change their address, yes.
Does signing up for the new healthcare law, does that generate a voter registration? Do you know?
I don't
Supposed
know, I haven't gone through that process and don't plan on it, but, I don't know, I think it's supposed to,
Yeah, I think it's supposed to.
yeah, but
But
I,
you
Wait,
haven't gotten
I'm
any.
not so sure that's a good idea. It
Freedom.
used to be on page 59 out of 60 or 61 pages of application.
oh, really?
And then it changed. My husband said, who's a health insurance agent, that is off the list. But here you're signing up for Obamacare, and then right at the end, would you like to, oh, are you registered to vote? No. They give you the link that you can press on right there. Who are you gonna vote for?
Yeah.
So I don't know if that has changed or not.
Yeah.
Something else to try to find out and call about.
Right.
Well, and kind of on that, every time somebody goes in for assistance in the state, they're filling it out, so
Right.
don't you deal with getting multiple registrations from the same person because they feel like they have to fill that out in order to
Yes.
get the assistance?
If you guys are familiar with the WIC program, it's Women's Infants and Children. It's a good program, it helps a lot of women and children. They go in and refile, they have to do their paperwork every 3 months, so every 3 months we get the same cards from the same people. And our office, our local office, we tried talking to them, you know, why do you keep re-registering these people? We were told that we have to. We get an audit, they get an audit, and if they have not done that for every single person, they get in trouble. Their funding is questioned. They can mark on there that I don't want to, or I'm already registered, but most people, they just fill out the paperwork again. It's like we just got their card. So,
Why is there?
bureaucracy. They had tried doing it where they weren't, you know, filling out every time, and they couldn't do that. They got audited for it.
For the government, you know.
So then these local offices, who may not understand the whole process, they say, okay, well, we're gonna stay out of trouble, we're gonna go beyond what we have to do, and they do it every time. So. Okay, talking about current issues, early voting does not, you know, it doesn't increase turnout overall. There have been studies done. It was interesting at one of our clerk trainings, our new Secretary of State is very, he's pushing very hard for early voting. We had a speaker talk to us, and he explained to everybody in the meeting how it doesn't increase the voter turnout, and then he came and spoke, and he told us how great it is and how much it increases voter turnout. I was like, that's weird. He obviously didn't listen to the speaker before him.
Well, it makes it easier to vote on election day and cheat.
Right.
If you voted officially 3 weeks early, then on election day you can go cheat.
You know, right now we have absentee voting. People probably use it more than they should. But there are at least a few restrictions on it. Early voting, it's anybody, anytime. And for the bigger districts like St. Louis and the ones you've talked about, they've got to have polling location for 6 weeks, or however long it is, 42 days, every day, including some Saturdays, for at least 8 to 5. Plus you're voting Saturdays, and you've got to have one for every 50,000 people, and anybody can come vote. And it just, I don't think it's a good idea. I think people need to be responsible and come vote on election day. You know, if there are extenuating circumstances, sometimes you can't. We have permanently disabled list, you know, people who who are in nursing homes or who are at home and they really can't stand in line. They can't come out. Military voters, they've done a lot to help them with the MOVE Act. You know, our military, I have that most respect for them. They deserve every opportunity to vote. We can now send them ballots by emails or faxes, or we can mail it to them. The problem with mailing them a ballot, is sometimes it takes so long to get them one.
Right.
So if they're in a combat zone at this point, they can email their ballot back to us, that they're the only ones, if they're in combat zones. Otherwise, they mail those back to us. And I hate getting ballots after Election Day, because they don't count. You know, if it's not there by 7 o'clock on Election Day, we can't count it. So for anybody who knows somebody in the military, encourage them to sign up for absentee ballots. They can go on to FVAP, I think it's .gov, but it's a federal voting assistance program. And it's designed for military and overseas voters. And it allows them to register to vote and ask for a ballot. The new laws with the MOVE Act, the Military and Overseas Voter something, it says that they have to ask for absentee ballots every year. It's only good for 1 calendar year. Previously, once they did it, they're on it until they asked to become off. So now every January, they should go in and ask for those absentee ballots, and then they automatically get one. So if anybody that you know is in the military, away from home, remind them to go in and do that. Let's see. We talked a little bit about online registration already. It's something you have access on the website. Before, you would go to the Secretary of State's website, you could fill out an application to register to vote, you print it out, you sign it, you mail it in. Now you can go online, you print it, you can fill it out, and you sign it with a mouse or with a stylus. You know, from a county clerk's perspective, there's some technology there that's reasonable. If you sign with a stylus on an iPad, your signatures are pretty good. That's what we use on our polling locations. And so I think some signatures are valid. We've been getting some signatures that look like a child scribbled them. They don't look close. When we pull up their voter registration, we can see their previous registration, and it shows us their signature. Some of them are so far off, it's ludicrous. Some of them are really close. You can tell the ones that were done with the stylus and they did it right. But if you use a mouse, your signature's not good. It's like signing at Walmart. It doesn't look like your signature. When this came out, I called the Secretary of State's office and I said, how do we have the authority to accept electronic signatures? Where does this right come from? Because I didn't see any legislation that went through to change anything. And they said that the reason why they can do it is because there's a law, and I don't have it in front of me, that allows for electronic signatures as long as both parties accept it. And it went, I can't think of, do you remember what that was, Mitch? But that's what they were basing it on. So they said that applies
It
to.
had nothing to do with elections.
It had nothing to do with elections.
Something
It was
else.
more doing with financial
Business,
things,
right.
business. So they said that gave them the right to do that. So the answer is, do we have to accept them? Are we going to get a lawsuit if we don't accept them and somebody can't register? Yes.
Because I just went through this, I was doing something online and I needed a signature, and so I signed a piece of paper, used my phones, and scanned it right in and laid it right on the document. If I am illiterate in that area can do it, what about people?
Yeah.
Because I tried using the mouse, and you're right, it's crazy in that, so I figured out a different way to do it. And if that's not my area of expertise, if I can figure it out, how about all the people that do know how to do
Yeah.
it?
I don't know why they don't offer something better. As a county clerk, I've chosen to, if I can look at it and compare it to another signature and it looks similar, I'll accept it. It's more of an address change than anything. I accept them. But the ones that don't look like it, or they're not previously registered, I don't accept them. Because the reason why it's important is, these are the signatures we use to verify your absentee ballot. If you return it by mail, you sign the envelope. And if I can't match your signatures because it was done with a mouse, is your vote going to count? Are we going to accept it?
Well, what I
And the
was,
petitions, it's the same thing.
well, what I was saying is, I just, because I was so disgusted with the mouse and that, I just wrote it on a plain piece of paper,
Right.
shot it with my phone, and then uploaded it and placed it in the document and that, so it is my actual, you know, it looks just like like I signed it.
And I think that's okay. I mean, as long as it's some, I don't know. It's hard to know what's best on these, but
Right.
if it doesn't look close, I mean, that's what decides whether or not your petition, your vote, your signature on a petition counts.
Right.
Those come back to the county clerk's office, and in 2012, we had 6 of them. We had to hire extra people to come in and help, and that's, I'm sure, nothing compared to what Boone County and St. Louis County knows how. But,
If you couldn't verify a signature on a petition, would you reject it?
yes,
Okay.
that's the thing that happens. If you can't verify the signature, you have to reject it. And we're not signature experts either. There's no training for that. Yes.
One of the strangest things I've heard in recent years, in the last couple years or so, they're not teaching children cursive writing
Right.
anymore.
Right.
They don't even know how to write anymore. So how does that affect on signatures? Are we in for something that kids don't even know how to write, sign their name? I mean, that sounds way out of there, but
They're not even teaching keyboarding in some areas of that because of the touch.
texting or something, okay, my gosh.
Yeah.
My
I don't
gosh,
know. I think
what we're in for.
I think we're in for some trouble. We haven't seen that yet. But you do see a lot more signatures. People don't sign their whole name. They sign, you can make out maybe two letters, the first letter and maybe a letter in between. It's a scribble. And,
Like a doctor, I guess.
yeah, we see more doctor signatures. But that's their signature.
But if you told them they had to just put an X, they would object.
Yeah.
It's interesting because when I fill out an application for a credit card, I put my full name and I sign it. When I use that credit card, I might use anything else beside that.
Yeah.
I might just use my initials, I might just use Walt, I might, it's hard telling, and they don't care.
You're right. They don't.
And the clerk, but behind the register doesn't pay that close attention.
And he doesn't know any better, because he doesn't have anything there to go with it. So, and I hate to say this, but when Obama's doing what he's doing, it filters down to every level below it
Yeah.
with the
Yeah,
government.
that's right.
And everybody else says, well, if he can get away with it, I can get away with it. That's why you have the problem that you're having right there, is because our Congress is not taking him to task. You can't change a law 28 times and
Yeah.
without having some repercussions, but
Right.
we don't seem to have that, so. Sure.
Well, our Secretary of State, when he passed this, was bragging because there are 14 states that allow electronic voter registration. 14.
Well, I don't understand why you guys
Hey,
don't,
we're moving right along.
why don't you stand up and say, we're not gonna do it?
Some of them are. I talked to one county clerk and he said that, well, I just have a stack of them on my desk, I haven't done anything with them.
So, why
Here's
are
the
you
problem
doing
with
it?
that. Here's the problem with that though. We have to, by law, if we receive a voter registration, we have to respond, enter it, do something within 5 to 7 days.
Send it back.
You can't leave it sitting on your desk. And that was my response to him. Then send them a letter.
Yeah.
You need to acknowledge that you received it. What we do is we send them a letter and say, we send them a voter registration card and we say, I need you to do this, your signature does not verify. That's the solution I came up with. But there was no conversation before this was put out there. It was released in a press release before the county clerks were told about it.
Oh,
It was released one day and we found out the next. That's when we got the email from the Secretary of State's office.
Which
There's
makes,
a problem.
You guys don't have an organization strong enough that you can say, we're not gonna do it?
We have a pretty good organization, but when something like that comes across, we're trying to figure out what can we do and how do we handle this. And we get to talking and we start figuring things out. Because at first I'm like, I don't know what to do. So I held them up for a few days and then I'm like, here's the only thing I can do. And here's where it comes to having somebody in office who cares. You know, some people were just accepting every single one of them. And I said, I don't think we can do that. I'm not gonna accept a signature that doesn't match the one that's already on file. Who's to say that's the person that filed the signature, the request?
We'll see if your organization went back and said, show me the actual legal document where there was a law passed that says you can do this, fine. Otherwise, go blow smoke.
Well, and we talked
Our
to them.
president doesn't even follow our laws.
That's what I said, but I mean,
Yeah, I
if we don't
understand.
start doing it at this level, we'll never get it done.
Right.
They're changing
Can't you
everything.
send them a letter and say there was a question about the signature and send them a new registration form with a stamped envelope to return
That's
to
what we
you?
do.
That's what
That's
you're
what
doing.
we
So
do.
that's what you are doing?
That's what we're doing in Callaway County.
And is it? Oh,
Stamped
okay.
envelope?
So that's what you're choosing to do?
Boone County sent the Secretary of State's office, she said, a letter to cease and desist. Stop accepting these. They
Boone
do not
County
work in
sent
my
it to the
county.
state?
Yes,
Boone County?
yes. Because it did not fit with.
Columbia.
Boone,
I know.
but I know. Our county clerk in Boone County is, Wendy, I
That's
don't know
Columbia,
what to say
isn't
about her.
That's
She is a Democrat, but she has set up her own voter registration program. And when they brought Missouri, the MCVR program that everybody else uses, she refused to get on board with it because hers was more advanced than theirs. They wouldn't use hers. She refused to use theirs. She took them to court and found out, and they said that she does not have to use it.
Well, but she's a Democrat opposing a Democrat,
Yes.
and that's
And she
another
said-
set of rules too.
Because on her website, you can do electronic registration, I guess, but you have to sign off that it's okay to use the signature. And the Secretary of State did not put anything like that in place. So I'm expecting a response from her. I asked her to see a copy of her letter that she's supposed to be sending to me, because
So are you wanting to do the same thing in Callaway?
I'm considering it, yeah.
Yeah, but that's only 2 counties, so
Well,
Well, but it
I'm
can
surprised
grow.
how these things spread.
I hope
County
so.
clerks do talk,
I hope
and they try to figure these things out, but, sometimes we're trying to figure it out. If things come, and you've got to figure things out as you're going.
So this is a strategy session. Would you suggest that we find out who our county clerk is and ask our county clerk to contact you so that you can give them the information to bring it back? Should we actually do something like that?
Yeah, that'd be fine. I think you should talk to your county clerk and let them know what you think about the electronic signatures and ask them what they're doing with them. How do you handle these? Because I don't know how they handle it in most of the other counties. And you can let them know to talk to Wendy Noren when she's done with it, and you can use my name and ask them. Yes.
I had Gary Fewer, the Republican director of the county board of election in a township meeting, and he read us the letter from Boone County that she wrote to the Secretary of State, that the Secretary of State is in violation of the protocols that had been set up in Boone County for registering electronically. So, she was on it right away.
She was. And Wendy has recently been going through some cancer treatments as well, so.
Oh.
I saw her in the end of January, and she's doing pretty well. So she's fired up, and she's a pistol. She doesn't take anything.
So
She's very
she wants to
involved.
do things the right way, not,
Sounds like she's a
Well,
Republican and a Democrat.
Might depend on the issue. I don't know
Okay.
where she stands on things like early voting
Well,
and
there's
voter
responsible
registration.
Democrats.
Yeah.
Yes.
So like, a couple people that are, trying to impeach Jay Nixon, I guess, for at least 2 issues. What about trying to impeach, Kinder? I mean, can you guys file articles of impeachment or to have him removed?
I don't
or
know.
Just for, that's what law do you follow? You can't just make your own laws, I mean, we would have pushback from county clerks.
The House of Representatives would have to file those articles of impeachment. The county clerks couldn't do anything like that.
right, but they could go to them.
Yes, that's true.
Okay, and then next topic was how to help, sign up to be a poll worker. And Frida's mentioned that quite a few times. Sign up to be a poll worker. And like they said, you can't be a poll worker from in any county. You have to be to be a poll worker, you have to be a registered voter in the state of Missouri. And you have to be able to, I think it says an upstanding character, and you have to be able to speak, write, and read English. I have friends that live in Callaway, and they came to St. Louis to be election judges.
Do they need your permission?
Yes.
Okay.
I said, you have my permission, go. I said, we have enough in most of our point, we have enough in the county that if you want to go, please go, because it is important to have that bipartisan team, because they're the ones that decide, when somebody comes in, whether or not their identification is valid. They're the ones that handle the ballots, and they keep each other honest.
Right.
In my county, I was told that there was one of the judges that was the supervisory judge, and she would, throughout election day, she would notice, kind of look and see, she watched who would come in and who was there, and she would, if she thought it was tending to go a little too much one way that wasn't her way, she would step outside, take a break, and make phone calls to her friends and tell them to come vote. And I was told this had been going on for years before I took office. Years. She had worked the polls for 20 years. And she pretty much ran the polls at that place. She had the others in fear. And it didn't do any good to say anything to the current county clerk, that county clerk, because it's her party. She didn't care. I removed her. I had several reasons to remove her, and that was one of them. Because I don't think we need people in there doing, they're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to do that. You encourage your friends to come vote, but you don't call them to come vote because you see too many Republicans are coming, you don't have enough Democrats voting. So, she was removed.
Good.
Good.
So, and I got a little bit of, Democrats are a little mad at me in Callaway County. For that and other things, but they don't like the way that I do things. Because before, if you were an election judge, you were an election judge for 20, 30 years, however long you wanted to be there. And you might be a Republican or Democrat working for either side. Mostly Democrats, because it was hard to find Republicans years ago, which I understand. If you have to put somebody in that position. But I've worked hard to make sure that it's a bipartisan team. And it's getting harder because people don't want to declare, even when they sign up to be a poll worker, Republican or Democrat. They're like, I don't want to choose one because I'm independent, or I don't want to, I vote for the person, and I tell them, thank you for, but the reality is, if you don't choose Republican or Democrat, I can't put you to work. The only place an independent can work as a poll worker is as a fifth person doing something that doesn't require a signature. They can hand out stickers, they can work direct traffic and things like that, but they can't do anything that requires a signature. So it's important to have somebody in there. And I've had where someone has called me up because they knew that one of our smaller locations, they knew somebody wasn't going to work, and they were one party, I don't remember which, and they said, so then as soon as I got this call that so-and-so was not going to work, and then probably 15 minutes later I got another call from someone, I've been thinking about it, and I think I'm not a Democrat, I'm a Republican. And I would like to be a Republican judge instead of a Democrat. Could you take me with it? Or, whichever party. And they may not care one way or the other. They may not be strong one way or the other. But that sounds fishy to me. That's not what we need. I want people who are going to declare one way or the other. So if you're interested in being a poll worker or an election judge, we call it both, sign up and be willing to work. The ones we like the best are the ones that say, I'm this, and I'll work anywhere. Those are wonderful. Callaway County is a big county, though. It's a lot of territory. So if you'll give me 4 or 5 places that you're willing to work, I try to keep people in their precinct if I can, but if you're willing to work here and nobody else is, I might put you over there, maybe just for one election because the judges are sick here, but I know that I can count on you to work somewhere else. You have a question or comment?
I guess a couple more, kind of a dumb question. Is there any mileage compensation, like if someone's going to St. Louis, fill-in, et cetera, is there any compensation for expenses or something like that on that type of thing? And also,
We do.
if someone gets sick or the car breaks down and can't make it or something relative, how does that handle? Just out of curiosity. Dumb
Okay.
question.
In our county is one of the largest counties. You know, it doesn't, it's only at 44,000 voters, but there are a lot of,
Spaced out.
citizens. But it's has a large area. So if we ask somebody's willing to work anywhere and we're asking them to travel a good distance, we do reimburse them for mileage at the state rate. Because they're helping us out, and I want to do that. Your other question was about if they call in the day of the election or the day before, maybe 2 days before. We have to find somebody to replace them. And as we have some judges that are on standby, they go to training, we pay them for training because they're willing to be on standby, and maybe a little bit more because they're willing to work anywhere. And so if somebody calls in sick, we call them and they'll fill in for the party that they're for, and they're already trained. And so then we can send them to work that day.
You have spares, isn't that way to do that?
Right. It costs a little bit more, you know, because we may not use them, but we're still paying for their training. But I think it's better to have somebody trained than somebody who's not trained. Yes.
If you sign up to be an election judge, is it per election or per calendar year, per, forever? Is there a term? What is the?
It says for the term of for your term, I think that varies by county.
Oh, okay.
Kind of in our county, the way it's been before is you're an election judge forever. Till death do us part. The way we handle it is, once you sign up, we leave you on the list of possible election judges until you ask to be removed. But we no longer, once you're put as an election judge, you work every single election.
And if you're an
I
election,
think we need to rotate just a little bit.
and if you're an election judge, you have to vote absentee ahead of time, right?
Not necessarily. If you are working in the precinct that you vote in, you don't have to vote absentee because you'll be there. You can, because sometimes it's so busy you don't have time to vote.
Right.
But you can vote absentee, but you can vote at your polling place if you're working at your polling place. So, yes.
We want to be a poll worker, no matter where we lived in the state. Is it the county clerk's office that we contact?
Well, in the cities, it's the Board of Elections. Kansas City, St. Louis, and I think there's a couple other ones. What about St. Charles? Do they have
I think it's Board of Elections.
Board of Elections? It would depend on your county, but the majority of the counties is the county clerk. And you can work anywhere. You have to get kind of a release from your county clerk to go work somewhere else. I don't know of any county clerks that would tell you no, because I've asked that question before. So I don't know of anybody that would say no, because they're glad that you want to be involved, and they know how hard the city of St. Louis and areas, Kansas City and different areas are looking for, especially Republican judges, to work.
In the city.
I've worked in St. Louis County and St. Louis City for the last 3 presidential elections, and I don't know that I ever called for permission to do it. I just didn't.
Yeah, and they may not ask for it. By law, they're supposed to, but
Oh, I see.
I don't.
Well, who called you to work at those? It might have been the St. Louis County election.
I don't remember how it started.
It's been 12 years, right?
Does that person have a question about if we get paid for working on?
Election judges are paid
Yes.
Right.
in every county, and it varies from county to county how much you get paid. You get paid to come to training, and you get paid to work as an election judge. It's a long day. You have to be there the polls are from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. But you have to be there ahead of time to set up. Some places 5, some 5:30. It depends on where you're working. And you're there until the votes are ready to go back, the ballots are ready to go back to the main place. So afterwards, you're there after 7 as well. So it is a long day. Be comfortable, and dress appropriately.
How does meals and stuff like that work in rural restaurant? How's that?
As far as meals for the election workers, by law, you're allowed to leave the polling place for an hour.
So someone takes your place, or how does that work out?
It depends. Again, it's probably going to depend on the county and how busy you are. You can't have everybody, like all the Republicans or all the Democrats can't leave at one time you still have to have pretty balanced team.
Right.
But you can leave something. but you don't have to. A lot of the times, and we live in a smaller county, so the big thing is, what are you gonna bring? They have themes. One place had Mexican, so they brought potluck in. Everybody, they coordinated ahead of time, and they knew what everybody was bringing. Some places, kids bring your own, but the potlucks, and I've made a step to go to all the different polling locations, trying to make sure things are going well. And oh, please eat. Can't eat anymore. And we're after 12:30 now.
Yeah, we need to close it down, because the pizza's getting cold.
So thank you guys for
Wherever you
listening
want.
to me talk and asking me questions. I was wondering if that. And one final thing I wanted to put in there for the teens, and for those of you who know teens, there is a program called Youth Participation Program, and you'd have to check with your election authority or your county clerks. Youth can be involved in the elections. In my county, it's something we started since I took office, and you can work, and we do the same training for them as we do the poll workers. They can do anything that the poll workers can do, except my rule is they're not allowed to initial off anything. They're minors. They should not be asked to choose a party. They should not be asked to sign off on anything, because if it comes back to a question, they should not be involved in the court. But you should ask about it if you're interested, and I can talk to you some more about it afterwards. It's worked really good in Franklin County and other counties that have that for youth. And what they found is the youth that get involved in that come back as election workers later on, and they also get involved in politics because they've seen how important these local elections are. So, something to think about, and I can answer any questions. I'll be here for lunch, so. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Denise.